Naomi Carrier celebrates Juneteenth because it's the day her great-great-grandmother, along with 300,000 other enslaved Black Texans, learned that they were free.
The day of the Jubilee they speak of, the day we're going to cross back over into Jordan, the day we're going to fly away. So they were anticipating freedom, and they knew that a logical outcome of the Civil War could mean freedom for African American slaves, whether they knew when it happened or not.
Juneteenth has taken on this kind of symbolic reverence as the day that the Emancipation Proclamation finally got to Texas. But in reality, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually end slavery, and neither did the Civil War. People did.
Juneteenth happened 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation that was scheduled to begin on January 1st, 1863 by Abraham Lincoln. But in Texas, the enslaved people were not allowed to practice their freedom until June 19th, 1865. And people will say, well, maybe they didn't get the news in time. Well, why were they late? They were late specifically because the planters needed to get another crop in the ground, and they did do that by Juneteenth. In fact, Abraham Lincoln had already been assassinated by the time the slaves in Texas were freed.
Yes, people in Texas knew about the Emancipation Proclamation, they just didn't enact it. They considered themselves a confederacy.
The Emancipation Proclamation was more about war strategy than about freeing the slaves. It was written during the Civil War and only applied to a subset of states that seceded from the Union. But the mere mention of emancipation, coupled with the invitation to join the Army, motivated almost 200,000 Black soldiers to join the Union and fight for their freedom on behalf of the Union, which forced equality to the forefront of the conversation. But Texas didn't care about that and wasn't interested in seceding.
The final vestiges of slavery were ended on June 19, 1865, but to what extent were they ended? Did he just come up and say, hi everybody, we're here, slavery's over?
Hank Theory is a former board member of the Galveston Historical Foundation. He showed me how General Gordon Granger ended slavery in Texas with the help of 2,000 Union soldiers right here in Galveston.
Of course, everyone knew by the sheer number of troops, the port of Galveston had been captured. The majority of cotton from all the plantations in Texas came through this channel, this port. It made Galveston one of the wealthiest cities in Texas. The fact that all cotton coming through the Galveston port was quartermastered to Union control basically meant it was over. The way the story is told, they left from this ship channel, roughly this general area, into downtown Galveston, where they entered the intersection of 22nd Street and the Strand. And that is when they began to issue their orders.
The day that General Gordon Granger came and delivered the announcement, and he didn't read the Emancipation Proclamation, he only read General Order Number 3.
General Order Number 3 doesn't have any caveats or clauses like the Emancipation Proclamation. And it doesn't just say that the enslaved people here are free, it says that they're equal.
What other document in American history discusses or references freed slaves as equal to their slave owners? You'd have to look long and hard to find it. And it's applicable on June 19, 1865. It's applicable on June 19, 2020. It's the same message.
It's that clarity of language about the value of Black life that makes Juneteenth Emancipation Day. But our ability to live up to that ideal as a nation is best measured in the days, weeks, and years that followed. Gordon Granger makes this announcement. What can newly freed people do at this point?
Was it tough? Yeah, of course it was.
And so when that particular announcement came, slaves in Galveston and all through Texas City, League City, other small towns and cities coming north from Galveston began to leave a place where they felt there was no opportunity. They began to seek freedom.
When Black people were freed, they got nothing. You got no wagon, no horses, no land, no tools, and most of all, no education. You're looking at a confederacy that doesn't want to yield and accept defeat. The military, who doesn't really have any real affinity for Black people, we're just ex-military. And then you're looking at the freed people who have to protect themselves from the awful violence that was prevalent against them at the end of the Civil War. In some ways, it might have been just like running away on the Underground Railroad.
And that was a trail of emancipation.
Earlier this year, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee co-authored a bill to start the process of making the Emancipation Trail a national park, documenting the pit stops, grave sites, neighborhoods, and towns where newly freed black slaves, against unimaginable odds, made a way for themselves.
It tells the story of these freed slaves as they made their way through all those small cities into Freedmen's Town, Independence Heights, the first African-American city, and then to Emancipation Park, right in Third Ward.
Watching the death of George Floyd, a Third Ward native, sparked nationwide ire over how we value black lives as Americans. People who've never questioned whether or not our country is living up to the ideals that Gordon Granger spelled out on Juneteenth are questioning it now. And for Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, the Emancipation Trail is part of the answer. Why is it important that the Emancipation Trail be memorialized that way?
You know, I think the nation needs to cry. I think we need to weep. This looms very large in not our healing, but our transformation. It is crucial that we leap into another era, because the one thing that we're trying to cling to is freedom and human decency, and to be treated in a way that our life journey is not filled with human indecencies, and that black lives not only matter, yes, they matter, we have to get others to know that, but that they are valued. Because if you don't value a life, you can take the life.